So, is there anything else maybe that you cover in class, or any other issues or angles or perspectives, like to offer food for thought? Is there anything that maybe we haven't touched on that you'd like to add?
Good question. um, just a bizarre. Oh, okay, got it. Laughing at versus laughing with.
Mm.
And when you watch humorous depictions of anybody African American, any group, if you are laughing at a joke, does that mean you are endorsing the image being depicted? If you are laughing at somebody who is playing a drug dealer or pimp character, are you endorsing that is the usual image, that you accept that as a true image of African Americans? In fact, this is one story of why David Chappelle said he quit his show. He said, if you've seen his show, most of his sketches deal with stereotypes of African Americans. And he was very consciously trying to break these stereotypes, exaggerate them to such a degree that they became ridiculous. And people could see that ridiculousness and laugh at the stereotype instead of laughing along with the stereotype. I show in class the clip where he has a black white supremacist, a black man who is blind and was brought up as a white person and never knew he was black, and eventually became a white supremacist. And this very clearly shows how racism is culturally constructed. It is something we are taught, not something that is. And so when getting together for his third season, he was a bit hesitant, thinking, okay, if I keep repeating these stereotypes, even if I'm doing it to expose them, does the sheer repetition reinforce them? And he said one day he was doing one of his sketches and a white crew member laughed. And the way he heard the laugh is that he heard the crew member as laughing with the stereotype instead of at the stereotype. In effect, saying that the stereotype was being reinforced and that was funny, the stereotype itself, not the poking fun at the stereotype. And he said he walked out at that point. Now, granted, he's given many stories about why he's walked out, and that may or may not be the actual one. But still, that calls into, high, that tells us the difference between laughing at and laughing with, and that the way we look at the stereotypes affects how we internalize it, what we file it away with in our minds. And ultimately, that makes the difference, is what we associate it with. Do we see these as real? Do we see these as poking fun at real? Do we see these stereotypes as, well, they're there because they're true? Well, are they true of a small point and then exaggerated so we think it's true of all? Or do we actually believe these stereotypes are true of every single person within the group, be it black, female, Asian, whatever? It takes incredibly little to reinforce a stereotype. If you have a stereotype in your head that a group of people act a certain way, picking a relatively benign stereotype that blondes are airheads. And if you see a real life blonde do something airhead, it's so easy to say, hey, it's true. And then take it with you and see it again. It becomes more true. And as it becomes more true, even when you see all the conflicting evidence, all the non-stereotypical acting, you dismiss those as exceptions. And so the stereotypes perpetuate themselves. So the viewpoint with which we watch media, and most of us are watching media to relax, to veg out. We don't want to think. And when we don't think, We tend to accept it without thinking, and all sorts of other values get in under the radar when we do that, when we don't have our heightened awareness. And we say, oh, we don't take that stuff in. But when push comes to shove, when you really get tight on somebody's values and everything, we take in a lot more than we think we do. And it affects us a lot more than we like to think it does.